We are global transformers, changing the world from the way it is to the way it should be. We are one. Wherever we live on this earth, we are one human family. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to extend a greeting to all the members of our family, whenever and wherever you may be listening around the world. To our family in China, Ni Hao. In India, Namaste. In Japan, Konnichiwa. In Korea, Annyeonghaseyo. In Russia, Здравствуйте. In Germany, Guten Tag. In Poland, Dzień dobry. In France, Bonjour. In Spain, Hola. In Italy, Ciao. In Egypt, Ahlan wa sahlan. In Ghana, Akwaba. In Nigeria, Peleo. In South Africa, Sawubona. In Senegal, Nangadef. In Kenya, Jambo. In Israel, Shalom. In Pakistan, Afghanistan, Palestine, and Saudi Arabia, Assalamu alaikum. Greetings, and may peace be upon you all. Join us live on the on-air radio network called 727-731-5192. We want to talk to you.
Hi, I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms.
And in case you didn't notice the resemblance, we're also three sisters.
We're going to be coming to you every week, sharing our successes and our mistakes as we navigate our lives as moms, wives, sisters, daughters, and of course, Black women in today's world.
We'll talk about it all: race, politics, religion, economics, culture, and we'll take a look at everything from whether or not to use corporal punishment to how do you teach your children about sex.
Look for our upcoming book, Growing Up Charles. It's a personal story about our lives growing up in Maple Park on Chicago's South Side. I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms. Follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Three Black Moms.
Hi, I'm Naima Latif, and if you're watching this, that means you're one of the 4.6 billion people from around the world who are using an electronic device to talk to people. In these times, people are using the internet to talk to everybody. Friends, neighbors, family members, co-workers. People are on their cell phones and computers all day long. Now, if you're in business, that is great news. That means you can sell your products and services all day long and never have to leave your home. All you need is a media connection, somebody to connect you to an audience. And that's why I'm talking to you today. We produce programs, and our audience members are people who shop. They buy clothes, food, beauty supplies, cleaning supplies, home repair, transportation services, child care services. Whatever you're selling, they need to buy it. We're your media connection. Just follow this link, and tomorrow you can sit back and relax at home while your business is making you money.
Women have the power to transform this world. We can end crime and violence if we all agree to do one thing: share. Let's share our wisdom, share our time, share our talents, share our finances, but most of all, let's share our love. This is the Female Solution.
Well. Good afternoon. This is Mama Troy just saying, hey, what a blessing to be here today. We're so excited today because This is June, and this is a month that's really exciting for many of us who are American and Black, because it's Black, not just Black history, but it's Black Music Month, and so we know that that's an honor for us. We also know that in June we celebrate Juneteenth, was the ending journey of our Emancipation Proclamation. The journey of the Emancipation Proclamation began in January 1st, 1863, and it wasn't until June 19th in 1865 that the completion of that emancipation journey ended in Texas. So I'm so excited because I believe that we're being blessed to really, with the Spirit, to just cross over and bring us together so that we can have conversations. And so, as our program, my topic is walk in your divine authority. The more that each one of us take responsibility for our own divine authority, we'll see that our walk for healing, for unity, for peace, and joy will come about in time, because we're going to be just naturally, organically brought together. And I'm just really delighted that for this day, because I was inspired by a lady who had visited Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And I got really excited because that she's interlocking with my ministry of the Emancipation Proclamation. And it's so very few people that I can have a discussion with about that time in America during that Civil War period, during that Emancipation Proclamation period, during that time of the great upheaval. And so many of us discussed it in many different realms, from a military, from a social, from a political, and don't see God in it. So when I heard that she had visited, and I could feel it in her voice, and she went with her son and her husband, it touched me very deeply. I said, I've got to talk with her. And she said yes. How about that? She said yes. So she's going to be with us in about another 5 minutes or so. But in keeping with our desire to always tap into our history, or that part of history that's not spoken about so much. And I think that is something that walking your authority is really encouraging. All of us have a story that needs to be told. All of us have stories that need to be shared. And when we center God in the midst of it, it brings a value. It brings a value that we all have an ability to embrace. And in the American spirit, that's something that we want to be able to look as a blessing, to have a right to the freedom of expression. And in telling our stories, we'll learn how closely related we are, and that we are more alike than we are different. And I enjoy that. Just doesn't that feel good? But we're in a society where there's another tone always telling us about who's different from whom, and who's better than the other. And I feel that this beautiful nation deserves more than that, because that's not the words that were formed into what it was birthed in. But I want to ask my spouse if he would introduce us to a video that I found on YouTube. And it's someone I think all of us should know. And it's Miss Emma Booker from Sarasota, Florida.
Heard of the story of Emma E. Booker? Well, if you haven't, don't worry. I did some digging. Let's get into it. Now listen, It's not a lot of pictures of this lady on the internet, all right? So if y'all see me keep using this picture, that's just because it's pretty much all I can find. Now, Emma grew up in the Live Oak area, but in 1918, she ended up moving to the Sarasota area to take on a job that she had heard about. Now, in 1918, when she took on this job, she was a teenager herself, all right? But back in Live Oak, she taught mathematics and reading to the students in her neighborhood. Now, at the time, the school was called Sarasota Grammar School, and it was the first public black school in Sarasota. So the highest education that you could get at the Sarasota Grammar School was 6th grade. But Emma was like, look, I want to be able to take this a little bit higher so I could teach the kids a little bit more. But the superintendent at the time was like, look, 6th grade is enough. For these students, they should be happy to get to 6th grade. But Emma was like, nah, that ain't how we're gonna do this, okay? Look, I need more grades. So after years and years of her pushing, the school board finally let her go up to the 8th grade. But in 1923, things start working in her favor because not only did she get them up to the 8th grade with teaching, she's now the principal of the school. But now she got a little pull in the system, okay? So instead of going up to the 8th grade, she's now doing seniors, 12th grade, so she can get them ready for college. Now this whole time Emma is teaching, and now she the principal. She ain't got no degree. So she goes back to school this whole time in the middle of her doing all of this to get her bachelor and her master's. And for decades, I'm talking about decades, this school is rolling. This school is rolling so well that they ended up naming the school after Emma, but not only just one school. They gave her 3 schools. All right, let's go to the headlines. Y'all already know how we do. Follow along, all right? So the Booker schools were named for Emma E. Booker, an African-American educator who began teaching at Sarasota County's first black school, Sarasota Grammar School, in 1918. Around that time, Miss Booker began to take college classes during the summer school break. All right, so when she wasn't teaching, she was learning. Now, I know we all know this iconic photo, okay? This is when Bush found out that the towers of 9/11 were hit, all right? And guess what school they was at when this happened? Emma E. Booker Elementary School. And I'm talking about immediately they shut that school down, all right? Turned it into the presidential Oval Office, and they did work right out of the school for the rest of that day. I didn't know that. And that's wild. So in a nutshell, Emma E. Booker basically carved out the educational system for black kids in the Sarasota area, all right? But her story is not told enough. You can barely find anything on this lady, all right? If you look it up, it's basically all on the school. So I had to do some digging.
But she walked in her divine authority in spite of the segregation, in spite of all of the mindsets against her by being black. And she stood strong. And she was able to teach and had not even finished school yet. You see, that's the beauty in when you're walking with God. You don't have to get a degree. You just have to believe. Let me move over to our guest. And this phenomenal lady and woman via Australia to this country. And she has the sweetest little accent. I was trying to figure out, okay, where is she from? I said, it's a little like British, but not quite British. And if you watch some of these movies, to me, it's a much sweeter sound, a softer than the tight-lipped British. And most of the movie stars that have it, I love to hear them speak. But anyway, this young lady that you're going to meet today is from Australia. And she has a wonderful, full life experience. And she's currently pastor of the Wisconsin Family Church. And it's FFWP, the Shield Family Federation for World Peace. And she's now currently working as a medical social worker in hospice. And believe it or not, just last week, I was inquiring with a couple of people, about 3 people last week, about going into chaplaincy for hospice and clinical are working in the hospitals because there's so much need for people who are going through the ends of their life, which is the hospice portion. And in the hospital, where you've grown older and there's no one there, who need to be assured that God has not left them, that God cares. And so that's what she's doing now. And she's a medical social worker. And she was raised in Australia, which means she has a lot of Australia's background, not just blood, but experiences, because she was there until at the age of 18 when her mother passed. Well, I'm not going to tell you her whole story. I met her through ACLC, American Clergy Leadership Conference, Women in Ministry. And she's a good person for me to have around because when we do decorations, she just says, oh, just move Mama Joy. I can take care of that because she's real tall. And when I'm trying to decorate, she'll stand and she just stands tall and just put her hands up and it's done. She's tall and she's a very solid woman with a very beautiful heart. And I'm so honored to welcome her here as a friend and as a member of ACLC. And I'm very grateful for the organization because it puts me in touch with people from so many different nations and walks in life. So right now, put your hands together and let's welcome to the platform here of Walk in Your Divine Authority, as she's going to do today. She does every day, I do believe. Pastor Marian North. God bless you.
Mama Joy, thank you very much. I feel very uplifted by your introduction of me. Yeah, and as part of myself today, I would like to introduce you to my husband, Glen, who is sitting here beside me. He's the reason I'm in Wisconsin. And we have our eldest son, Daniel, who's at law school in Nebraska, with us today also, because we three had the blessing to travel together to Gettysburg. Actually, we didn't have the intention to go to Gettysburg. We were in Pennsylvania, and looking at the map, we were near Gettysburg, so that's a great place to go. So we went there. We spent a whole day there. It was a very powerful experience to be there and to be there together. There are so many monuments and so many memorials to all different aspects of this 3-day battle. One of the points that intrigued me greatly about this battle is that neither side planned there to be a battle in Gettysburg. Not the northern side, which was called the Army of the Potomac, and not the southern side under Reverend Lee. But there was a battle there, and it is immortalized in American history. I don't think there's a school student who hasn't heard about the Battle of Gettysburg. But the Battle of Gettysburg further interests me because it's the first Union victory in the Civil War. Up until that time, the Civil War Army, no matter who was leading it, had not been victorious in a battle against Reverend Lee.
Robert E. Lee.
Robert E. Lee, yeah. He was a tremendous general, yeah. And it seems to me that this battle in Gettysburg took place not on the time set by the northern contingent, nor on the time set by the southern contingent, but on a time set by God. God decided this should be a battle. God decided that this field would be consecrated.
I understand fully. That's why I wanted you here, because this battle and any of those battles of the Civil War were sacred battles for us, for this nation to make a decision as to whether or not it was going to be a slave country or a free country, and also to understand the minds of the people of that period as they saw it as the War of Armageddon.
Yeah, it was very much a battle between good and evil. The monuments there are to the Union troops and to the Confederate troops. Both sides shed their blood. It was a huge sacrifice of people. And in that sacrifice, there was grounds that God had for the redemption and the salvation and the protection of his America. It's very important to remember that America is God's country. She may think it was founded for political or economic or whatever reasons, but no, God founded America. And God has a mission for America. It's a providential nation. It's great because it's blessed by God. And it will lose its greatness if it deviates from its allegiance to God. So this America is such a sacred place. And this journey to Gettysburg was an amazing experience, to be there together, to walk over these fields. It's like going to a holy place, and realizing that, yes, just as Lincoln said, this land is sanctified way beyond our ability to decree it as sacred by the people who shed their blood here. And they shed it because of the beliefs that they had. But out of this battle, this is not the end of the Civil War. The war rages for another 2 years. But this battle is the pivotal point. And this battle is where, in November of that same year, Abraham Lincoln gave the absolutely beloved Gettysburg. So that was not an accident. This is God's timing. This was what God wanted to come out of that battle. This is how God is looking for the salvation and the victory of America. And God is absolutely dedicated to the people with whom he is working. I'm so moved by this program, this walking in my authority, because Heavenly Parent needs us to exercise our authority based on his blessing and his grace.
Yes.
So under leadership of Mother Moon, who's a co-founder of ACLC and Women in Ministry, she has been asking women around the world in so many international conventions to understand that this is women's time in history. This is the time for women to stand up. This is the time for women to exercise what? Divine authority. It's the authority of Heavenly Mother manifest in the women in the world. And when, for me, as a woman and a mother, being in Gettysburg, there are so many statues of young men, and they are representing the loss of so many men at that time. So our reflection of our sons is to take good care of them. We don't want to see them go to war. We don't want to repeat this again.
We don't.
We want it to be finished. So my reflection of this experience is that I'm so grateful that we could go. And like all experiences, it's different for each person who goes. So I'm very grateful to Mama Joy that she included my husband Glen, my son Daniel, so they can share something of their reflection and experience at this time. And I'd like to ask Glen if he would like to share some very personal connection with this Civil War. So Glen.
Okay. Let me first say hello, Glen. Let me welcome you to the platform of the Female Solution. And this is right on the hem of what Pastor North says, and that is, it is time for women to make this stand. And as you know, this is the Female Solution, because we have come to that point of understanding. And our CEO, Sister Naima Latif, she's had this show for a number of years, I know over 10 years. And it's always been the Female Solution, because that's the way the Creator guided her within herself to know that. And so that's one of the things that I wanted it understood, that there are many of us here in America who have been led to understand that we have a divine calling. And when I heard and Mother Moon stepped into that position after Father Moon left, it made it so easy for me to grasp because I said, that's who I am. And because of the level of the visibility of her coming outside of it. And Glenn, I'm going to get to you because here we have commercials, we have sponsorships, and we have to make sure we get our sponsors on it. I'm going to ask Daniel, when we come back, I'd like for you to just Google and pull up that Emancipation Proclamation that your mother called upon. Because we miss so much when we don't understand that God is in the midst of all of it. And that's one of the beautiful assignments that I've ever had in my life, and that was to teach the Emancipation Proclamation. And Brother Glenn, we're going to be back in a couple of minutes. We're going to have commercials. And when we come back, I want you to share. And I'm asked that Sharon can put up that awesome picture of your great uncle, and you'll share your story about him. Okay.
All
So
right.
we're so grateful for everyone who's here today, being with us. Okay. So we're having some other challenges. Can't find the original video. Okay, well, we're just going to move on. So now I'll be right back. We also want you to know that if you want to talk with either the North or make comments, that you can call our number. I'm going to ask that number be placed on the screen for you, 515-605-9325. And you can also find us on Facebook Live and YouTube, okay? The number there is on the screen. So we will be right back. Let Joy kind of navigate through this world right now. And I want to thank our callers on the board. I see your numbers here. And if you want to speak with our guest here, then I just ask that you press the 1 and we will put you right on. Okay, be right back. Don't stray away.
We have an opportunity to transform the whole global society in the next 50 years. 50 years from now, the earth will be populated by a new generation of adults, many of whom are yet unborn. Our mission is to nurture them in childhood with love, guidance, and protection, and to raise them in healthy, happy families. If we impart values of compassion, generosity, and respect for fellow human beings in the next generation of children, they will create a world where people can live together in peace. This is our goal. Be a part of the transformation. Get your copy of the book, Female Solution. Go to www.naimalatif.com. That's www.naimalatif.com. Do you want to live in a world without war? Join our global peace movement. Heavenly Culture World Peace Restoration of Light transcends culture, religion, ideology, and the boundaries to achieve peaceful harmony in the global society. HWPL is committed to bringing world peace and cessation of war through peaceful dialogue between religious groups. I am Director Shin-Suk Kim of the HWPL Chicago branch of North America. Join us for our next gathering. Call 773-580-1501 and be a part of the movement for world peace. Email us at chicagohwpl@gmail.com.
All right, this is Mama Joy returning back to walk in your divine authority. And we have a guest here today, none other than Pastor Marian North and her husband, Glen North, and her son. You know, we've got a family here. I don't have this too often. So I'm really excited about it. And before we go, I have a caller, and I don't know what their comments are, but I'd like to just let you know that you're not here by yourself, and let me find out what it is, what comments that they want to speak to you about. They just put their hand up, and that's caller 0048. Can you give us your name, please, and tell us where you're calling from?
Reverend Fanny Smith calling from Chicago, Illinois.
Wait, hold on. Let me see. Let me see if I can get this.
Hi, everybody. Hello.
Can you all hear us? Yes. Fanny, I think you have Fanny. I think you've got two things going. Are you watching YouTube and you're on the phone too?
I'm here.
Yeah, turn off your computer, because we're getting a lot of feedback. So just mute your computer so we can hear that beautiful melodious voice of yours. Okay. There we go. Are you there? Fanny, I didn't say mute the phone. Mute the computer. Mute the computer so we can hear. Because when you our callers, when you call, if you're watching us, and I know many of us want to watch us on the Facebook or the YouTube, but when you call in to speak with us, you have to mute your computer. Otherwise, you'll be getting feedback from the talk radio and the computer. So are you there, Reverend Fanny? Oh, okay. Well, we're gonna open up and be ready for you. I'm gonna leave the mic open just in case. Oh, she's just dropped. So, well, we'll just back. Well, Glen, Brother Glen, it's all yours. What have you tell us there with us today? Say hi to our audience.
Well, hello, audience, and thank you so much, Reverend Mama Joy, that you have us on your show today. This is a wonderful thing you're doing. I'm very grateful for your efforts, and I feel very, very touched and inspired by your calling, and to recognize the force and power of women in solving the problems of the world and bringing us to a world of peace. So you're completely on the right track, and I completely support you in what you're doing, as well as my lovely wife here, who is a kindred spirit. So thank you. And I just want to bring a little bit of a personal feeling to the experience of Gettysburg. As Marian and you have mentioned, our family visited the battlefield about a month and a half ago. And it was a very profound experience. The battlefield itself is about 5 miles north to south, and it's about 3 miles east to west. It's a huge area, and it fully encompasses the city of Gettysburg, the village of Gettysburg. I think it was Joseph Stalin who said that one death is a tragedy, but a million deaths is a statistic. And as Marian mentioned, Abraham Lincoln in his Gettysburg Address said that the soil at Gettysburg is consecrated by the blood of the people who suffered and died there. And as we toured that battlefield, we spent an entire day, and it's such a huge area that they have a self-guided auto tour. You can use an app on your phone, and you visit about 25 different sites that were important in that battle. And I want to talk about, to give it a personal touch, not a statistic, but a tragedy. I want to introduce you to the brother of my great-grandfather who was at that battle. And this is his picture. Yep, and I guess you have it, and there it is. Yes, that's him. Isn't he a handsome lad? And isn't there a family resemblance there? But anyway, in the summer of 1863, Robert E. Lee, who is thought by many to be by far the greatest and best general of the Civil War, who unfortunately was on the side of the South fighting on behalf of the Confederacy for secession and the promulgation of slavery. Unfortunately, he was fighting for the South, but he had decided and he had won every battle in the Civil War up to that point, as Marian said. And in the summer of 1863, he decided to take the fight to the north, and he took his army, his Confederate army, up through Maryland and into southern Pennsylvania, and was attacking the Union and attempting to weaken their ability to make war by attacking their manufacturing centers and so on. And his ultimate goal was to actually come back and attack Washington and take the capital.
Mm-hmm.
So Abraham Lincoln, of course, very concerned about that, instructed his generals to go out there and find the Confederate army and confront them and hopefully expel them from the north and hopefully defeat them. And Abraham Lincoln was very frustrated because up until that point, he had not been able to find a general to command the Grand Army of the Republic, the Union Army. He had not been able to find a general who he felt was aggressive enough and talented enough to be victorious. So on the eve of the Battle of Gettysburg, he changed generals once again, and he put in command a guy by the name of Meade, M-E-A-D-E. And the two armies were moving through Pennsylvania, and just by chance, a unit of 1,000 Union cavalrymen encountered on the highway, the road northwest of Gettysburg. They encountered coming toward them a force of 12,000 Confederate infantry.
Oh, Jesus.
And the Union cavalry dismounted their horses. They had one man hold 4 horses while the other 3 engaged in battle against the approaching Confederates. And of course, they were vastly outnumbered, so they had to continually retreat. And word got back to the main Union force, and they sent reinforcements. And in that group of reinforcements was my great-great uncle, whose photo we just showed you.
Mm.
And in a woods northwest of Gettysburg, the Confederates entered one side of the woods, and the Union forces, the Union reinforcements, including my great-great uncle, entered the other side of that woods. And a fierce, horrible battle ensued with much loss of life and injury, suffering. And my great-great uncle was shot through both arms. And in one of his arms, he had a compound fracture with the bone sticking out.
Mm.
Needless to say, that was the end of the Battle of Gettysburg for him. He was evacuated to a hospital where his wounds were treated, and fortunately, he survived. Of course, many people injured in those days did not survive. They succumbed to infection because they didn't have antibiotics, and they didn't have the understanding of germs and so on that we have today. So we were at the site of that battle, and it really touched home to me because I knew that my relative was there. And you could almost feel the blood in the ground, and you could feel the sorrow at that site. Now, I've talked about my great-great-uncle, but I also want to talk briefly about his father.
Can we just get a little pause of that? Can we just get a little pause of that? Because I can hear you, I can feel you, and that's why we are calling this the sacred echoes of Gettysburg. Because you are here, those people are not dead.
Yeah,
that spirit is still here with us. And when we forget about them, we should know what is going to happen to us up in the road. This nation will never heal, Brother Glenn. It will never heal if we forget them. We will never heal if we claim to be children of the Most High and cannot garner up enough courage and love and forgiveness, most of all, to be able to sit down and say, I repent. I'm sorry. And I am so honored to have your presence as a part of a prayer. Because when I'm here on this show of the Female Solution, yes, Heidi, I agree. So much sacrifice. And it is hard to even fathom. You're right. I pray for God to bless me with ancestors of people who are a part of that battle, that story, so that we can hear them. We're talking about a Gettysburg battle where we had over 51,000 casualties, 23,000 casualties on the Union side, and 28,000 men, husbands, uncles, nephews, sons on that battlefield of Gettysburg. We had over 51,112 men out there on this American soil that many people, the only thing they could remember was the very thing that Abraham said. They will long not remember what we say here, but we don't want them to forget what they did here. We know the Emancipation Proclamation address that he had, but we have forgotten the sacrifices of those. And your uncle, over 51,000, and most of the people, as you said, they died because of the disease, not the bullet, but because of the disease and the inept way of not knowing how to handle such a massive number of people. And not only that, they didn't have any way of connecting all those bodies.
Yeah.
That it was so great until, the kind of system we have now to gather up bodies of wounded soldiers or those who have been lost. That had not even taken place yet. So many of these, I implore you to go to your Google and get some of the images. Some of those men, their bodies decayed out on the field, and they are buried right there on the field and were turned into bones. They were burying bones because they could not handle all of that death. Oh, we cannot forget this. And we can't stay bitter. And I'm going to let you finish, but I just had to say that because it's the power of the people and the love of God in the people and the love of the people's love for this nation as the providence of God that they went forth like this. There's a scene that True Blood gives, and if you want to read the story on the Abraham Lincoln Lessons in Spiritual Leadership, you see that this is we had a great theologian as a president.
We did, yes.
A great theologian, a man who prayed all day, but carried his Bible all day, read the Bible back and forward. We're in the divine hands of God, but we're not going to let it slip away. That's why we have this program today, because we've forgotten, but we're reminding them. And I just had to say that, Glenn, because your uncle is present with us right now. What was the inspiration for Daniel going into the law? Was that part of it? Somebody we all should remember. I must have to hang his picture up and I'm gonna say, hey, he was on my program. Thank you. So while you were there, what were you sensing? You know, I never really understood the spirit world that much, but I do know that when I'm there and I can feel the presence. Did you hear? Could you even fathom the mourns? Thank you, Sharam, for putting up these pictures. Because one of the things that really got to me when I start looking at the pictures and reading more about the Battle of Gettysburg, it was, I would say, 98% hand-to-hand combat. It was men with band gorging and going forth. It was hand-to-hand combat. That rapid firing rifle came in during that time, but that wasn't utilized to a great degree. These men, and these were brothers fighting brothers, fathers fighting sons, because of what they believed God was leading them to do and whose side. That's the most important thing. And I think most people forget, or I probably don't even know, that this was a war where Christians in the North was fighting Christians in the South.
Yeah.
So what was your thought on that, Sister Marian, as a pastor and one who is aware of crises and how this type of situation can traumatize? You said it was not planned. Gettysburg was not a planned battle.
No, but it is not.
And how do you think that impacted psychologically on the people of Gettysburg? And do you feel it's still there? Do you feel it's still impacting on them?
Yeah, I think it's not possible to go there, Reverend Joy, without being touched by the reality of what happened at that place. And to sit at the gateway to the cemetery there, to see all those white stones lined up, trying to make honor to the people who died there. It's a very powerful experience to stand at the place where Lincoln gave the Gettysburg Address and to understand that in less than 3 minutes, he summarized something so much deeply ingrained in the heart of America. That was not his words. Yes, he spoke the words, but God spoke through him. It was God who was trying to give the consciousness to the nation about what it needed to do in order for it to be able to accomplish what God needs America to accomplish. So God brought many people here, but the people here, they need to make oneness together because this is God's land. So the experience of being there, it's a very holy experience. I don't know if the picture came through, but there's one picture our family took with President Lincoln. He wasn't there. It's just a statue, right? But you feel like...
Did you send that to me?
Last night, yeah.
I sent you those pictures in the text, Sharam, and I sent that. It's a statue.
Yeah.
There were several statues. Yeah. I wish you could put them on so we can see parts of the visitation that they had, because they sent several pictures of the family. That picture. Tell me about this particular picture. This one gave stats about how many people died.
Right. In particular,
Yeah, I remember.
Being from Wisconsin, we especially wanted to visit all the Wisconsin monuments. So these are of the Iron Brigade. They list the people who came from Wisconsin, who fought in this battle. And Wisconsin, interestingly enough, has a very high percentage of eligible people who participated voluntarily in the Civil War. So she only became a state in 1848. But 20 years later, she's heavily engaged. 12 years later, in this war. So these memorials are really moving.
It's something, when you say that, when I saw the pictures, and I went into the Google and got images, and when I saw Louisiana, something happened to me, because it was a distance. But when I saw the state of Louisiana, which is my home state,
right,
I said, well, Louisiana was there. You see all of these states that was participating. Look, tell us about this. What's this statue right here? What's this about?
This was a memorial, I think, for the people of Pennsylvania. And it was very interesting because it said in this memorial, we are putting people from different walks of life. And it listed them, and it said one of the people is a youth and one is a young man, as if they were two different things. And it was immortalizing with gratitude the unity that came about as people came together to fight for something bigger than any of them, regardless of their occupation or their education, but because of their belief in something that Lincoln lists as something holy that could be reserved at this time. And it was, it's very powerful because when we see these statues of these young men, then it could be your son, Reverend Joy. It could be my son, who was there. And there's so much poignancy, to appreciating that. So I think when you're ready, if Daniel could share a little bit about his experience, I think it would help to round out the perspective from a patriotic point of view.
I'm ready for Daniel. I'm ready. And before I want you to set yourself up with that Emancipation Proclamation. And Zelda Robinson says, good afternoon, beautiful people enjoying the show from Turks and Caicos. Really? Thanks for sharing this information. Thank you, Zelda, for sharing it. And thank you, Minister Rosa, who is also a member of Reverend Stalin Church. Right. And thank you, Heidi Vetter. So are you ready for that? Prepared that, reading that and setting this up for us? I am just, this is touching. Let us know when you're ready, Daniel.
Hi, Reverend Mama Joy. I have the Gettysburg Address, which I put in the chat. I also am just bringing up the Emancipation Proclamation of January 1st, 1863, which I have in front of me now. Would you like me to read from it?
I'd like for you to read it. The print from there is very small. Can you read it? Okay.
I can read it.
Because you can get a text of it, but you're reading from the actual, the script one, right?
Oh, no, I have a transcription of it in typeface. Awesome.
Yes, I would love to hear you say it, read it, because I think that too needs to be refreshed in our minds.
Issued January 1st, 1863, by the President of the United States of America, a proclamation. Whereas on the 22nd day of September, A.D. 1862, a proclamation was issued by the President of the United States containing, among other things, the following, to wit, that on the first day of January A.D. 1863, all persons held as slaves within any state or designated part of a state, the people whereof shall then be in rebellion against the United States, shall be then, thenceforth, and forever free. And the executive government of the United States, including the military and naval authority thereof, will recognize and maintain the freedom of such persons, and will do no act or acts to repress such persons or any of them in any efforts they may make for their actual freedom. That the proclamation will, on the first day of January aforesaid, by proclamation, designate the states and parts of states, if any, in which the people thereof, respectively, shall then be in rebellion against the United States, and the fact that any state or the people thereof shall on that day be in good faith represented in the Congress of the United States by members chosen thereto at elections wherein a majority of the qualified voters of such states shall have participated shall, in the absence of strong countervailing testimony, be deemed conclusive evidence that such state and the people thereof are not then in rebellion against the United States. Now, therefore, I, Abraham Lincoln, President of the United States, by the virtue of the power in me vested as Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy of the United States, in time of actual armed rebellion against the authority and government of the United States, and as a fit and necessary war measure for suppressing said rebellion, do, on this first day of January AD 1863, and in accordance with my purpose so to do, publicly proclaimed for the full period of 100 days from the first day mentioned above, order and designate as the states and parts of states wherein the people thereof, respectively, are this day in rebellion against the United States, the following, to wit, Arkansas, Texas, Louisiana, except the parishes of St. Bernard, Pelquimines, Jefferson, St. John, St. Charles, St. James, Ascension, Assumption, Terrebonne, La Fourche, St. Mary, St. Martin, and Orleans, including the city of New Orleans, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia, except the 48 counties designated as West Virginia, and also the counties of Berkeley, Accomack, Northampton, Elizabeth City, York, Princess Anne, and Norfolk, including the cities of Norfolk and Portsmouth, and which excepted parts are for the present left precisely as if this proclamation were not issued. And by virtue of the power and the great purpose aforesaid, I do order and declare that all persons held as slaves within said designated states and parts of states are, and henceforth shall be, free, and that the executive government of the United States, including the military and naval authorities thereof, will recognize and maintain the freedom of said persons. And I hereby enjoin upon the people so declared to be free to abstain from all violence, unless in necessary self-defense. And I recommend to them that, in all case, when allowed, they labor faithfully for reasonable wages. And I further declare and make known that such persons of suitable condition will be received to the armed forces of the United States, to garrison forts, positions, stations, and other places, and to man vessels of all sorts in said service. And upon this act, sincerely believed to be an act of justice, warranted by the Constitution upon military necessity, I invoke the considerate judgment of mankind and the gracious favor of Almighty God. So concludes the Emancipation Proclamation.
Thank you so much. My goodness. Now, my error on this, I wanted the Gettysburg Address, but I told you the Emancipation Proclamation. And
I also have that one, but
and you know what, Daniel? I just want to tell you, I'm gonna let you do that one too a little later. Maybe your dad can read that one. I'm gonna have everybody doing assignments today. I want you to know what Daniel just read, if you notice that he concluded with a prayer. How many of us know that the Emancipation Proclamation had a prayer in it? How many of us know that when Daniel read, Daniel acknowledged the presence of God 5 times in that document? Pastor North, what is it that has us so torn up until even when something is written and we have our children reading it in school that we don't even see God? God is mentioned 5 times in that. And there's a prayer there for us. How did we miss it? How did we miss it? Got sponsors now at this point.
The We've come to the end of our show today. If you missed any broadcasts, go to our website for the audio and video archives at www.thefemalesolution.com. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to thank all of you who participated in today's discussions. And to our global family joining us from all around the world, we say thank you. To our family in China, xie xie. India, Dhanyavad. Japan, arigato. Korea, kamsamnida. Russia, spasiba. Germany, danke. Poland, dziękuję. France, merci. Spain, gracias. Italy, grazie. Egypt, shukran. Ghana, madasi. Nigeria, eshe. South Africa, ngiyabonga. Senegal, jareh. Kenya, asante. Israel, toda. Pakistan, shukriya. Afghanistan, tashakur. Saudi Arabia and Palestine, shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Thank you, and may peace be upon you and the mercy of God and God's blessings.